Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Kyrgyzstan says its death toll from clashes with Tajikistan at their disputed border has reached 31. According to Kyrgyz Foreign Ministry, the two sides reached a ceasefire hours after the clashes on Thursday, but there are reports that the fighting has resumed. The global number of coronavirus infections has surpassed 150 million with over 3.1 million deaths. Meanwhile, India has reported world's highest coronavirus cases again with over 386,000 new infections. Several Indian states have run out of COVID-19 vaccines, while inoculation centers in Mumbai have been shut for 3 days. In Pakistan, 131 people have lost their lives to the virus and more than 5,100 tested positive since yesterday. Russia has added the political network of jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny to its database of terrorist and extremist organizations. The network disbanded its office in anticipation of the move on Thursday. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he does not believe a UN-led meeting on the Cyprus issue will yield results. Speaking to reporters in Istanbul, Erdogan said he does not trust Greek Cypriots. The statement comes a day after a 3-day UN-led summit between rival Cypriots failed to reach any breakthrough. And in cricket, Pakistan scored 374 runs for the loss of 6 wickets at stumps on the second day of the first test against Zimbabwe. They are now leading the hosts by 198 runs. Fawad Alam scored a century for Pakistan. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. Kyrgyzstan says its death toll from border clashes with Tajikistan has reached 31. According to Kyrgyz Foreign Ministry, the two sides reached a ceasefire hours after clashes on Thursday, but there are reports that the fighting has resumed. The border clashes started over a water reservoir located on the Isfara River, which both the countries claim as their own. Poor demarcation of the border has led to a number of clashes since the independence of the two countries after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. The global number of coronavirus infections has surpassed 150 million with over 3.1 million deaths. Meanwhile, India has reported the world's highest single-day cases for the third consecutive day. The country recorded more than 386,000 cases and nearly 3,500 deaths overnight. More in this report.
The global confusion and disorder sowed by the coronavirus pandemic are peaking with the raging third wave. Hours after France outlined plans to gradually reopen, the country detected its first cases of the variant ravaging India. As the UK enjoys a successful vaccination campaign, experts warn that India-linked variants can become the country's second most dominant within weeks. In Turkey, thousands of people fled big cities hours before a full lockdown went into effect for 17 days. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has warned European governments against relaxing restrictions. Over in Brazil, coronavirus-linked deaths have crossed 400,000 as the country struggles with its inoculations.
This whole scenario contributes to the worsening of the scenario. Because when you do not follow the pharmacological measures, what are you going to do? Have an intense circulation of people, increasing the risk of more serious variants than those already are circulating, predominantly in the young. As the elderly population has been immunized with at least one dose, I predict quite a dramatic landscape.
Meanwhile, the first US military plane has brought emergency coronavirus supplies to help India battle a deadly surge. For over 2 weeks now, India has been breaking daily case records amid a fatal oxygen shortage. Mass migration after the lockdowns in big cities has sparked fears of the virus spreading to smaller towns and villages. People in rural regions are lining up to refill oxygen cylinders outside factories as hospitals struggle to treat coronavirus patients.
My sister passed away on April 23rd and my brother's condition is very bad. No one is giving any information from the oxygen manufacturing facility. How will we get oxygen? Do we have to bring money? Only people with higher access and who they know are getting oxygen, while we stand here for hours, but no one is talking to us.
In New Zealand, despite living in one of the world's few countries to have largely returned to normal, people are still reporting a negative impact on mental health and income from the pandemic.
Pakistan has reported 131 coronavirus deaths and more than 5,100 cases overnight. The Health Ministry says the death toll has risen to 17,811. More than 820,000 people have contracted the virus since the pandemic began. Meanwhile, more than 711,000 people have recovered. The number of active cases has crossed 91,000 and nearly 5,400 are critical. The positivity ratio stands at 10.41%. Meanwhile, Planning Minister Asad Umar says Pakistan's oxygen production has risen by 260 tons to 725 tons per day. In a tweet, he added that the government has decided to import 6,000 tons of oxygen, 5,000 cylinders and 20 cryogenic tanks. Russia has added jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny's political network to its database of terrorist organizations. The network of Navalny's regional offices had disbanded earlier in anticipation of the move. The decision comes as part of the government's continued targeting of Navalny as well as his allies. He set up the network across Russia while campaigning to run against President Vladimir Putin in the 2018 election. But he was eventually barred from participating in the election. Navalny is serving a 2.5-year jail sentence for parole violations on an earlier embezzlement conviction. He claims the charges against him are politically motivated. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he does not believe a UN-led meeting on the Cyprus issue will yield results. Speaking to media in Istanbul, Erdogan said he does not trust Greek Cypriots. The statement comes a day after a 3-day UN-led summit between rival Cypriots failed to reach any breakthrough. Earlier, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that there was not enough common ground to resume peace talks. The previous round of talks collapsed in 2017. The Mediterranean island was split between a Greek Cypriot South and a Turkish Cypriot North in 1974. The conflict has stoked wider tensions between NATO members Turkey and Greece, including over hydrocarbon resources. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó has lauded Pakistan's role in maintaining stability in the region amid the Afghan crisis. He was addressing a press conference along with his Pakistani counterpart Shah Mahmood Qureshi in Islamabad.
Szijjártó said the EU should assist Pakistan in its fight against terrorism, especially after withdrawal of NATO troops from Afghanistan. He said Afghanistan must not be allowed to become a terrorist-safe haven after foreign troops pull out. Earlier in Pakistan-Hungary Economic Diplomacy Conference, Szijjártó vowed to expand bilateral trade. He said Budapest views COVID-19 vaccines as tools to save lives rather than an issue of ideology or geopolitics. Meanwhile, Shah Mahmood Qureshi said both sides have agreed that the FATF should not be used as a political tool. He said Islamabad offers a huge market for Hungarian businesses, particularly in the energy sector. Both sides also signed a number of MOUs for cooperation in different fields.
The U.S. Embassy in Moscow says it will reduce consular services after Russia banned hiding local staff at foreign missions. The step has further strained the already tense ties between the U.S. and Russia. In a statement, the American embassy said it is cutting the workforce by 75%. Reacting to the move, the Kremlin said the U.S. visa services have been limited for a year amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Last week, a law signed by Russian President Vladimir Putin allowed the country to cap the number of local staff working at foreign missions. The law also requires the government to draw up a list of unfriendly states that will be subject to the changes. Saudi Arabia and the U.S. have reviewed joint efforts for a comprehensive political solution to the Yemeni crisis. Saudi state media says U.S. Special Envoy for Yemen, Tim Lenderking, called on Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh. It said both sides discussed the development in Yemen. It said the U.S. envoy will build on the international consensus to hold the Houthi offensive on Marib during his regional visit. In Colombia, police have clashed with protesters as thousands took to the streets against proposed tax reforms by the government. The new reforms will increase taxes on individuals and businesses and eliminate many exemptions. President Ivan Duque said authorities will act against the demonstrators breaking the law. But protesters vow to continue their demonstrations until the government withdraws its tax reform package. Iran has welcomed Saudi Arabia's peace gesture and hoped they can work together to secure peace. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson made the remarks days after Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman called for good relations with Tehran. In a press briefing, Saeed Khatibzadeh said important regional players can start revisiting tense relations through constructive dialogue. He said Iran is playing a pioneering role in enhancing regional cooperation by presenting proposals like the Hormuz Peace Plan. Meanwhile, ending a regional tour, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said there are indications of positive signs on the horizon. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has postponed the parliamentary elections amid a dispute over voting in the occupied East Jerusalem.
At a press conference, Abbas blamed Israel for uncertainty about whether it will allow voting in the occupied territories. Abbas said Palestinians in Jerusalem will not give up their democratic rights. He added Israelis threatened to detain Palestinian Elections Commission chairman if he visited Jerusalem for preparations. Meanwhile, Hamas has rejected the postponement, terming it a coup against the path of national consensus. Talking to Reuters, Hamas spokesperson said the Fatah movement bears responsibility for the consequences of this position. The elections were set to take place on the 22nd of May after 16 years.
The United Nations says the COVID-19 crisis and the coup can push up to 12 million people in Myanmar into poverty. In a report, the UNDP warned nearly half the population will live below the national poverty line by 2022. It also strongly condemned the killing of civilians and called for a strong international response to the crisis. Meanwhile, protesters have yet taken again to the streets against the military regime in Mandalay. The Karen Peace Support Network says 8,000 more ethnic villagers are poised to cross into Thailand. Thai officials say more than 2,000 civilians have already escaped to Bangkok. Activists say security forces have killed at least 759 protesters since the February 1st coup. Scotland has backtracked from the proposal of an urgent referendum for independence from the UK. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says she wants to tackle the coronavirus pandemic first. Sturgeon reiterated that she is a lifelong believer in independence and wants Scotland to be free. Sturgeon's party, the Scottish National Party, has promised to hold a new referendum in 2023 if it wins in the May 6 elections. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. 33 artifacts smuggled to the U.S. during 2 decades of war have been delivered back to the National Museum in Afghanistan. More in this report.
40 years of conflict, from the 1980s Soviet occupation to internal fighting and the war against Taliban, have destroyed much of Afghanistan's art, artifacts and architecture. Warlords stole other pieces and sold them abroad. Many belonging to the 2nd and 11th centuries were obtained by anti-trafficking police in the US in 2012 and 2014.
About 10,500 antiquities have been returned to the country from different countries during the last 20 years. One of the recent examples of these antiquities are these 33 antiquities that have been returned from the United States.
Afghan officials are urging people to help security forces in their fight against smuggling and illegal excavations.
I call on the people of Afghanistan to stop the smugglers in a national mobilization and help our security organizations prevent illegal excavations.
The Taliban in 2001 destroyed artifacts, including many historical statues, dating from the 3rd century when many Afghans practiced Buddhism. These included 2 towering Buddha statues in Bamyan province and scores of smaller ones excavated from monasteries.
Hundreds of South Korean fishermen are protesting at sea against Japan's decision to release nuclear plant wastewater into the sea. South Korea's National Federation of Fisheries Cooperatives said fishermen carried out rallies at ports in 9 marine cities. 20 fishing boats with banners denouncing Japan's decision sail near Gyeongpyeong port. The protesters are calling on Japan to reverse its decision. Japan plans to release over 1 million tons of contaminated water into the Pacific Ocean. Britain's Royal Mint has unveiled a coin weighing over 10 kilograms. The 20 centimeters coin was created by craftspeople working with cutting-edge technology for over 400 hours. The Royal Mint has never produced a coin as large as this in its 1,100 years history. It is the concluding piece of the Queen Elizabeth's Beasts commemorative series. It is inspired by the 10 stone statues that lined her journey to Westminster Abbey during her coronation in 1953. The coin has already been sold, but the Mint did not give any details about the sale. The world's largest aeroplane made its sophomore flight, soaring into clear skies over California's Mojave Desert. Named Rock, the plane is designed to transport hypersonic vehicles and facilitate easy access to space. The company Stratolaunch says the carbon composite carrier aircraft has a massive 385-foot wingspan. It can climb to altitudes of 35,000 feet. Rock's original focus was launching satellites and eventually humans into space. But the company says its priority for now is the in-air launch of other vehicles like the Talon A. Stratolaunch was founded by late billionaire and Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen in 2011. It was later sold to private ownership in late 2019 following Allen's death. A call center consultant from Scotland has taken remote working to the next level. He has set up his office across the cliffside over the Irish Sea. Details in this report.
Digital nomad is one of the pandemic-induced phenomena to the working habits. The term refers to the people who use technology to work from wherever connectivity is possible. Jason Griffin, a 34-year-old consultant from Glasgow, has temporarily set up his office on a portal edge. Griffin says as long as he has a mobile connection and his laptop, he has everything he needs to do his job as good as, if not better than, if he were in a busy office.
Today we are pushing the technology to its limits because we're going over a cliff face and we're abseiling down to a ledge, and I will be working all day from that ledge and taking and making calls, interacting with internal staff while I sit there at this ledge on the side of a cliff, just showing that remote literally means remote.
As per a survey published on April 1st, more employers in Britain think working from home is increasing the productivity of their staff. The Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development says a third of employers think remote working has boosted their output, up from 28% in last June. However, it remains to be seen how permanent the shift to working from home proves to be.
We all saw the digital tsunami coming, but we didn't see the biological tsunami in the form of COVID-19. And in many respects, COVID-19 is the unofficial closing ceremony to the industrial era. So remote work was always on the cards as we move towards the gig economy. COVID has just accelerated it by about a decade.
Global accountancy firm KPMG's survey indicates that most major companies no longer plan to reduce their office space after the pandemic, though few expect business to return to normal this year.
The world's longest pedestrian suspension bridge is open near the town of Arouca in northern Portugal. One must gather enough courage to step onto the see-through metal grid pathway of the 516-meter-long bridge. This report has more.
Hidden between rock-strewn mountains inside the UNESCO-recognized Arouca Geopark, the bridge hangs 175 meters above the fast-flowing river Paiva. The landscape is calm, but the crossing is not for the faint-hearted. Held up by steel cables and two massive towers on each side, it wobbles a little with every step.
I confess I was a little afraid, but it was worth it. Because it is extraordinary, a unique experience and one that I highly recommend. It is indeed an incredible adrenaline rush. To be there so high, to feel the bridge shaking a little, to look down and see the running river. It's incredible.
The bridge cost about $2.8 million and took around 2 years to build. The mayor of the town says the bridge is part of a wider strategy to encourage more people to move and stay in the region. Arouca 516 breaks the record for the longest pedestrian suspension bridge held since 2017 by the Charles Cunin Bridge at Randa in the Swiss Alps.
The biggest suspended pedestrian bridge in the world is in Arouca, a bridge with a grid that allows transparency and total integration with the landscape. We are next to Paiva's Canyon. We are surrounded by granite. These towers are almost the part of landscape. It is a very successful project and I am very proud, like everyone else in Arouca, of this achievement.
Locals hope the attraction will help revive the region, especially after the devastating COVID-19 pandemic. The bridge was opened only to local residents on Thursday, but everyone can book a visit from 3rd of May.
In South China, the Atlantis SANYA resort in Hainan province has set a Guinness World Record for the largest underwater mermaid show. The resort had 110 divers in mermaid costumes swimming in its 11-meter deep Ambassador Lagoon aquarium. It partnered with the Professional Association of Diving Instructors for the event. They also performed various underwater stunts in front of a live audience. Sanya, the city where the resort is located, is a popular tourist destination. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. As daily life picks up this summer, families in New York will soon have a new Lego-themed amusement park to enjoy. Details in this report.
3, 2, 1.
The long-delayed Legoland New York is finally set to open this summer. Currently in the final phases of construction, the park is located in Goshen, which is only an hour-long drive from New York City. After its opening, its 150-acre attraction will have everything Lego lovers could imagine. Already well underway are Lego versions of US cities, including New York. The park will feature 50 rides and attractions. One of the rides will use technology to turn the riders into Lego minifigures as they travel through a Lego factory.
This is the first time that we've shown all of these rides and attractions off to the world. You saw our brand new ride, the Lego Factory Adventure Ride, which is never before seen in any Legoland theme park.
At the hotel adjacent to the park, guests are to expect limited capacity, an online advance reservation system, digital park tickets, and cashless payments.
We have stringent safety protocols in place. You've seen some of them today. We're all masked. We take social distancing very seriously. We are striving to make this a cashless and a contactless resort so that everybody can feel safe and make Legoland New York Resort a safe place to play.
The park will be populated by a total of some 15,000 Lego models. In order to comply with social distancing, it is set to open in phases during the summer.
Canada and Pakistan have established outdoor rinks in northern areas of Pakistan to promote winter tourism and draw attention to climate change. The project is a joint venture of the Canadian High Commission and Pakistan's winter sports organizations. In a statement, Canadian High Commissioner Wendy Gilmer said the rinks will promote hockey among the youth. She said that the game will act as a tool to curb climate change in Pakistan. She added that the program also has been successful in encouraging girls to play hockey. The Wall Street stocks have declined as investors hit pause after a barrage of strong quarterly earnings. Technology and energy stocks led the plunge. 9 of 11 major S&P 500 sectors traded lower, making it float over 0.5% lower. The DJI index also traded more than 0.5% down, while Nasdaq Composite landed in negative territory. Meanwhile, the oil prices slipped as lockdowns in India offset a bullish outlook on fuel demand. The European Union has accused Apple of violating the bloc's antitrust laws. Its regulators charged Apple with distorting competition in the music streaming market and sided with Spotify. In a statement, an EU Commission official said the company deprives users of cheaper music streaming choices. This is the first time Brussels has leveled anti-competitive charges against Apple. If the case is pursued, the EU could potentially impose a fine of up to 10% of Apple's globe turnover. Apple has rebuffed the accusations. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.